seconds. And that should be fine. You can start now, Tom. Over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 7th show and tell of this phase of product development for BoPS, a new back office planning system for local planning authorities. Firstly, just need to let you know that this show and tell is being recorded and will be available on this YouTube channel in due course alongside all of our other previous show and tells. My name is Tom Buttrick and I'm one of the product owners for BoPS here at Southwark Council, where we are working with our partner boroughs and our delivery partner Unboxed to develop this tool. Next slide, please. For those that don't know BoPS, it's a new software application designed for and by planning authorities that will process planning applications in a more efficient and intuitive manner, making decisions quicker and using less resources. Our users of BoPS are planning officers who process planning applications, planning managers who sign off the decision, and ultimately applicants who want to build their homes and businesses sooner. Next slide, please. So where are we? We finished sprint 7 of 8, which means one more left, which starts next week. The primary objective of this phase of development was to prepare the MVP of BoPS for private and public beta testing for lawful development certificates, which we're well on the way to doing, and also continuing our work on the householder planning application side of the tool as well. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, do click on the link below and add your question and we'll answer it at the end of the presentation. Do get involved. We look forward to your questions. Next slide, please. But firstly, it's time to celebrate. We are very happy. We've been awarded further funding from the local digital team at MHCLG for the next phase of BoPS's development. So thank you to all MHCLG for this. We're super excited to get this. It's a testament to the hard work of the team and the quality of BoPS as a product itself. Also, congratulations while we're here to our sister project teams at the Reducing Invalid Planning Applications project team and the Digital Place-Based Engagement project team as well, who've also received funding from MHCLG. With these tools combined, we are creating the future of the planning system for local planning authorities. So watch this space. Next slide, please. What does this funding mean? Well, the funding means that from April 2021, which is next month, we'll be moving forward into the live public beta testing of lawful development certificates using our MVP at our 3 partner councils, Lambeth, Southwark, obviously, and Buckinghamshire. We'll be working on householder planning applications in terms of the product development of BoPS. That's building on our previous work. And we'll also be working on the next stages of the wider BoPS project, which is about how we take the product to market, further partnership working and improve presence in the sector. I am now going to hand over to Martin, I think, who will be letting you know what we've done this sprint. Martin.
Yeah, I think we've skipped a slide somewhere there.
Yeah, maybe this one.
Can we go back or should I talk over this one?
It seems that someone has removed the slides from.
Okay. don't worry. I'll talk through it anyway. Yeah, so we're currently in sprint 7 of 8, as Tom mentioned, which is our penultimate sprint. We've really been focused on preparing that what we put as live testing. So preparing an environment. We've previously been working in a staging environment or a preview environment for testing, but now this will include, the next round of testing will include live data. So we've set up a new environment for that. We've also added a feature which allows for the manual creation and editing of planning applications. Previously, we were only taking applications via the API, which Ripper was sending us. We now have the ability to add applications, which we think will just give us a bit more flexibility during testing. For example, we might add some postal applications. We might try running those through the system via manual entry. Also allows us to edit those all important descriptions of the project, which are submitted by an applicant, but may not always be appropriate and detailed enough. We've continued to work. I mean, it's been a recurring theme managing documents throughout the development, but we've now settled on an approach to document tags, using document tags to form the main description of the document, and that will be displayed on the decision notice. Melissa in a moment is going to talk you through those features and demo some of them. And then Ali will talk you through some of the work we've been doing from a design perspective on the consultation process for householder applications specifically, and some other work that we've been doing around that. And I guess we've also been doing some of the more less easily demonstrable work around data protection processes and some of the testing scenarios as well. So I'm going to hand over to Melissa now to run you through the technical stuff.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, so for the past sprint, we have been focused on setting up separate production and staging environments. This is important because you want to be able to have a live website that doesn't have any corrupted data, any dummy data. So having a staging website separate allows us developers to have a bit of a playground with a lot of different applications that we can modify, and have a production environment that we keep separate that is just the actual tool that you'll use in your day-to-day. So we keep separation of concerns and a bit of a safer data stream, so to say. Another thing that we've been doing is adding the ability for you to manually enter an application. So this was a requirement because sometimes you'll get an application in a post that you need to add without the use of an API. Now we can do that. We can not only do that, we can also edit those applications regardless of whether they were sent via an API from RIPA or if they were manually entered. And we're also auditing everything along the way. So if someone deletes an email, you'll know what it was before, and you'll know how you can put it back in and who made the change. I will showcase this in a moment. On other features, we've also allowed for you to be able to download the PDF after the decision notice is published. We've upgraded the app to Rails 6.1.3, which means that we're now on a more secure platform. It's better for the future to always have the latest security updates and patches. So this was a really good thing to do. And we also allowed for different addresses to be submitted under one UPRN, which you couldn't do before, but it's important that you can, because sometimes you'll have a building with multiple blocks of flats that have the same UPRN, because the UPRN actually belongs to that building. Now we've skipped over a slide, so I'm just going to quickly go back here. Another thing we've been doing is adding the document management features that Martin's already mentioned before. So you can now see tags in the decision notice and have an easier journey that allows you to see your documents a little bit more clearly all in one page. I'll also showcase this now. So let's go over to the BoPS services. And I'm going to start by adding a new application. So let's say we're adding a chimney stack. You can also modify the date when you receive this application, because sometimes you want to, well, it's not only about when you receive the letter, but you might want to change the date from when you'll start the counter that that application needs to be reviewed. Now we will say, we can make up an address. We'll say this is my road. And we will use this postcode. So it's London. This goes here. Let's say we put this here. Okay. We can make up a UPRN. And this is whether the development is proposed or existing. And we're going to use my details here as the applicant. Oh, any number. And we'll say that my brother is my agent, because why not? Save. Now we have the planning application. We're going to upload the document to show you the new improved. We'll just add a Ruby on Rails tutorial and give it a couple of tags. We'll need to add the document number, because we'll say that this is going to be public on the decision notice. And then save it. It'll take a little while to load. Let's do. Did I click it? Yes. There we go. Okay, so now we have our new document. We said we wanted public, and you can see that this window now displays a little bit more information about the documents than we had before. Now, if we go back into the application, I'll just show you that you can easily edit everything about it. So we'll go into edit details, and we'll say that instead of Mel Road, we'll say that Michelle now took over the Safel Road now. And we're going to say that my last name is now, we'll save that. And you can see that if we go into the audit log for whatever was changed, we now know that this used to be Mel Road, now it's Michelle's Road, and that the last name was updated. So you can easily have a record of who updated what and what was changed. Okay, so I've showcased the documents features and I've showcased editing, adding, and creating an application. Now we're gonna just validate this so I can show you that you can now see the PDF decision notice in the end. GDPO compliant. We'll say, okay. We'll submit the recommendation. And now we have the document reference over here. We'll submit it to the manager and we'll quickly log in as a manager. Let's find Michelle's Road. And now review it, yes, okay. And by the very end, after you publish the determination, now you can go into view the decision notice and you're able to download this PDF over here. And there we go. We have Michelle's Road decision notice with all of the different actions that we took so far being audited. And unless I forgot anything, does anyone want to remind me of a feature that I might have missed?
I think you covered it great, Melissa. I guess one thing we just wanted to point out a bit was about being able to edit the summary, just because I know planners are really up for that.
So you can edit all the details.
Yeah.
Of course, like we still need to add validation, but we're in the process of understanding what is most important to let you add and modify. So right now, even after the decision's been published, you can edit something, which obviously in an ideal world shouldn't happen. But now if you need to go say, add a backyard cinema in here instead, you can still do that. So there's nothing stopping you from editing an application that's already been published. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Ali for her to take you through our design decisions.
Great, thank you, Melissa. So this sprint, we ran a workshop with 5 participants from Southwark, Buckinghamshire and Camden. And we were looking at the consultation process for full householder application. During this workshop, we were mainly focused on the internal and external consultee process. So not looking at public consultation currently, because we know that process is a little bit different per council, but the internal and external is a little bit more consistent across councils. So during this workshop, we ran 2 activities. The first activity was looking at how we can kind of like structure the questions we're asking from internal and external consultees. And we kind of defined 3 kind of key areas that we want to ensure are being asked. So the first was like, does a consultee object or approve with conditions? What further information would be helpful to like assess the application on, and then also any important points that would be helpful to include in the report. As well as this, we were also looking at the design. So if you can go to the next slide, of how that like responsive would come in and be displayed within BoPS. So we were asking participants to sketch out what an ideal situation might look like. And we kind of defined that it'd be really useful to be able to structure responses into, I don't know, columns, you could call them. So like how you could group them. So if that would look at like all your responses coming under if there was an objection, if there was no objection, if a consultee had requested further information. So having all of those consultee responses under those headings would allow you to action them quite easily. So if you could define, oh, these 3 people had asked for this bit of further information, you could easily ask that of your applicant and get them to supply that information. As well as kind of other smaller things about having the display of like if an applicant hadn't responded yet, so then you'd know to nudge them along the way. So after the workshop, I've started to synthesize this and started to design some of how that would look within the new BoPS system, which I'll show you next show and tell. Next slide, please. So as well as the workshop, we've also been looking at how just to kind of like a slight redesign of the full householder display of the BoPS system. So instead of having supporting information over the two columns, keeping that to the left and having your actions on the right. And it just kind of improves the hierarchy of the information and also just maximizes the space. So whenever you're going through and actioning maybe something like documenting your site visit or summarizing your report, you've got the maximum amount of space to do that. Next slide, please. So each sprint we're constantly testing and iterating the system. So we tested with a planning officer from Southwark Council. Next slide, please. And some of the key things that came out was the ability to maybe like group or search documents. So we know that with a full householder application, you might have a longer list of documents, and it would be useful to maybe group them under like proposal or proposed, existing, or maybe then further documentation. And then also how it is currently within the system is we have specific sections that the application is assessed against, but it would also be important to be able to add additional kind of maybe not really bespoke, but bespoke per application. So having the planning officer being able to define those. And then the last one was around like editing conditions. So currently within the system, those are kind of like predefined, but it'd be important to be able to edit them and have a more bespoke condition. And then also the ability to add the reason of why you've added that condition as well. But those are some things that we're going to be introducing into the system as we iterate it. Next slide, please. I'm now going to hand over to Emily from Buckinghamshire.
Hello, good morning everyone. So this sprint, the team have been working on site location plans. So what's a location plan? Well, all planning applications usually require a plan, also known as a location plan, which shows the boundary of the application area. This is important for our planning records, but also for other council functions such as land charges and property history searches. What's needed on the location plan is set out in legislation and varies between different types of applications. As the local planning authority, it's important we make sure the plan and the boundary is correct and contains everything needed to process the application. Location plans are currently one of the top reasons for invalidation, as they are often drawn incorrectly or miss the necessary elements. In the interest of moving from documents to data, the Reducing Invalid Planning Applications project has tried to rethink how applicants can submit their boundaries by allowing users to draw them directly onto a map based digitally. This sprint, we've been thinking about what happens to that boundary data when it arrives into BoPS. We've decided that the best course of action for private beta testing is to display the user drawn boundary and its coordinates on a map base for officers to check and validate within BoPS. We'll be putting this together over the next sprint. In the future, we'll see how we can develop this feature further to help with our other functions and how we can process applications with boundary data rather than documents. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Emily, and the team. So this is our final sprint of this phase. Just to remind everyone, the focus was for this phase was to getting an MVP, a product in the hands of planning officers that would allow them to manage permitted development applications. As Emily's just described, we're going to do some more work on the site location maps. Our default position is that it can be provided as a PDF, but not ideal, obviously, and we've got a plan to show this boundary map. We also, the original focus for this phase was on householder permitted development, but it's become apparent that we can do much more with different types of lawful development certificate applications. So we're going to just run through that and make sure we're set up to receive lots of different types. And we'll be doing that in the form of some kind of collaborative a workshop perhaps, or and then of course we're preparing for the next phase. As has been mentioned, we've got continuous funding to expand into householder applications. Ali has started doing the design and the research around that. We've got a good sense of what features we need to develop, but we'll continue to work on that in this sprint, preparing for the next phase as well. I should have reminded everybody that our backlog is publicly available. it sometimes gets a bit messy, but we like to work in the open, so you can always see what we're working on and what we've got in the backlog to work on next. I think that's it in terms of what's next. I'm going to hand over to Tom to wrap up, I think.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you all for the rest of the team. That's some great to see the latest functionality that's been developed over this sprint. We work obviously with our partner organisations, so our partner councils. We want to work with more councils, more local planning authorities. So we'd like to hear from you. If you'd like to get in touch, please do. If you'd like a demo or you'd like to test the tool, please contact Peter or myself. Our details are there. And yeah, we're always very happy to virtually present the work that we've done here, and actually the actual tool in the round. As we know, each show and tell shows the incremental improvement to the product, but it's really good to actually demo the full product, and actually that's a really great way of showing where we've got to and also where we're going to be going to in the future. Next slide, please. So this draws us to the end of the formal presentation, but we always ask for questions. So if we can jump over to Lauren, who has our Slido there ready and waiting. So Lauren, if I can hand over to you to see what questions we have this week.
Thank you, Tom. So we have a few questions this week. So the first question is, can you add site photos to the file? And that's from Kath Duter at Southwark.
Thank you, Kath. Shall I start with this, Martin? And then if you want to jump in as well. So you can actually upload PDFs files to the service. I think we can say that we haven't explicitly thought directly around site photos for LDCs, but obviously as we move to householder applications, a site visit is part of that process. And obviously we do, when we do our site visits, capture lots of site photos for context for the site itself. So that functionality, I think we can explicitly look at in the next phase, but the functionality is there, if I'm right, Martin, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right, Tom. I can't really add to that. We can receive images as document files. The planning officer can upload document files. In terms of more structured, specific site visits, that's one of the features we'll be adding for a householder. Is the ability to do. Well, we don't really know if there are going to be site visits anytime soon, but we'll be looking at that feature in the next phase for sure.
In terms of file types, we do support PNGs and JPEGs, so it's not just PDFs that you can upload, if that was one of the questions.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. So the next question is, when are you going live?
That's a really good question. Obviously, the key primary objective of this phase was to get to public beta testing with our 3 partner councils. That's still our objective. We will be bringing the live testing through into our next phase. Without giving an exact date, we're close, but I would imagine we're going to be looking kind of end of spring, really to do that. To have that in place. We are finalising our work with our sister project, the Reducing Invalid Planning Applications, which will be providing the planning applications through to BoPS. We'll continue to work with them, and as soon as we are ready, we'll be letting everyone know.
Thank you. So the next question is, are you intending to test the application using a wider audience? It seems to be very much based on one authority's approach to the process.
Good question, thank you. Firstly, yes, we are. We want to test the application using a wider audience. So do get in touch if you'd like to be part of that. The core councils who will be testing at this phase, currently and also in the public beta, is Southwark, Lambeth and Buckinghamshire. We work closely with planners from those core councils, as well as Camden and others. For example, we were with Cambridgeshire Council recently as well, working with them. So the approach we have is it isn't just Southwark Council as the product owner's view on this. We need and want a wide variety of views of planners testing the tool to actually feed into this process. We recognise Southwark has its own should we say, characteristics, urban, geographical and contextual characteristics that is different to Buckinghamshire, for example, where there's a lot more rural planning. So we need to make sure the tool works for all different scenarios that come forward. And obviously LDCs, where the MVP is now focused, should be applicable across England, but we recognise there's still variation in there. So yes, we do intend to test. We are testing the application to through a wider audience of LPAs, and we'd like to go wider still. So do get in touch.
May I add to that, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to challenge the statement that it's based on one authority's approach to the process. We've been at this for quite a long time now, and we've engaged, I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30 different authorities during the research, the prototyping, and the development phase. In terms of rolling out the MVP, we have been very much focused on 3 authorities. But what I would say is we've resisted very much tailoring it to any particular authority's approach. We've tried to change the approach so that it's a bit more generic, and it's very pared down. As you can see, it is a very minimal service, but it is based on the kind of common features that we've seen across all authorities. And there will inevitably be variations across the councils that we're not aware of, but we are aware of some of the variations. And the focus is on very much on getting something simple that can be used across many councils, in order for us then to build on top of that with any customization that might be needed. So yeah, just to reiterate, we've engaged a lot of councils during this process, not just Southwark, certainly not just Southwark, not just the partner councils, but many more over the last year and a half.
Thank you. And so the next question is looking great, and it's come on loads recently. Do you have a high level plan on what application types you'll scale to after householders?
That's a good question. Obviously, householders is very much in our focus moving to the next phase of development. Where we've had discussions with our partners, and with MHCLG, we are looking potentially at minor applications as well. The core functionality is obviously there, and obviously we need to develop it to take into account the variations that are required for different types of applications. So I think minors are definitely there. We also have to consider what else is being developed in terms with our sister project with Ripper. But there's as we know, there's lots of different types of applications that we could take into account. So we're welcome for comments, or if there's anything that you think we should be looking at. Obviously, what the whole purpose of BoPS, or one of the key objectives, is to make decisions quicker with a lot more user-friendly system. And we recognise by having a quicker decision-making process, we can really swiftly get through the types of applications that shouldn't take as long as they do. Obviously, we recognise as we move from LDCs into full planning applications, there is the statutory consultation periods. So we recognise that will still be there, and we'll have to make decisions within the regs. But any planning applications really, I guess, especially at the high volume types of planning applications that should be made, where decisions should be made quicker or can be made quicker, are going to be in scope.
Thank you. So then we've got 2 more questions. So the next question is from Dave in Coventry, and it says, on consultations, will you look at identifying consultees based on planning application type and constraints?
Yep. I was going to say, I don't mind jumping in and answering.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we are looking to do, not just constraints, but also the application type. It's something that we have started to think about, and we're going to be putting some, starting to map that out in a bit more detail in the coming sprint.
Yep, and that was from Dave from Coventry. Hi, Dave. Yeah, we look forward to coming back to you and asking your views on this. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Actually, our last question is actually a comment, so I'm just going to read the comment out. It says, it looks really great, easy on the eye interface, and avoiding clunky, lots of confusing tabs. So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. Lots of hard work has gone in to make the interface as it looks today, to make it easy on the eye, and we don't want any clunk. So, so thank you for that comment. And I think that's the last of the questions, Lauren.
Yes, that's fine.
That's great. Well, without further ado, thank you for watching today. We really value your time. Thank you for your questions. Next week starts sprint 8, which is the last sprint of this phase of development. But after Easter, we'll be getting stuck into the next phase as well. So watch this space as we move towards householder and to the public beta testing. So thank you. The sprint 8 show and tell is 2 weeks today, Thursday, the 1st of April, and that will be at 10